All right, so we've been talking a lot about infrastructure. I'm going to talk about infrastructure, but I'm going to tie this talk a little bit to the application layer. And in particular, I want to look at what we're all doing as infrastructure builders to help enable Web3's breakout killer application, the social application that can actually scale to billions of users, and what's currently missing and what we need to focus on and put in place if we're going to actually achieve this milestone in the coming year, like I think that we can. So for a little bit of background, my name is Doug Petkanics. I work on LivePeer. Our mission's been to build the world's open video infrastructure. We're a decentralized network of node operators coordinated by Arbitrum now, Ethereum originally. It's been live for 4.5 years, and we power millions of minutes of video streaming every week. I think we've done over 100 million minutes of video streaming this year by social applications, creator applications in the Web3 space. And so we have a lot of lessons learned and kind of a perspective on what we need to do next and what's missing. To show some of these applications, some of these names or screenshots may be familiar. These are all kind of Web3 native social and creator applications. So Huddle 01 down here is really interesting. It's like the Web3 Zoom for DAOs and projects with integrations to your smart contracts on chain, your wallet-based login, your token-gated access to conferences and whatnot. And they use LivePeer to stream to their communities. You see apps like LensTube, which is sort of like a Web3 YouTube and the Lens protocol ecosystem. You see creator apps like Bonfire and Inflow for musicians dropping music videos, running concerts, allowing on-chain monetization and tipping and NFT sales. Beam is a big app in the kind of film community for filmmakers to distribute their content and kind of crowdfund their efforts. So again, I think these are not just kind of DeFi applications that reach millions of users through, or thousands of users through kind of speculative kind of light interactions, but these are rich media-focused applications like we're used to experiencing in apps like Twitch and YouTube. I have a belief that the next TikTok scale app will be built on Web3 technologies, leverage Web3 primitives, because the these primitives for monetization, for access, for community ownership lead to such better models for the creators, for the users, for the apps themselves than the attention economy advertising models that we see in kind of traditional social media today that have caused kind of a lot of the ills in our society in the past couple of years. I think this is actually an old chart. I meant to put a new one in, but it shows TikTok's explosive growth over its first couple of years. This has only accelerated. They have over 2 billion downloads. And if you talk to creators on TikTok, you actually find they want better connections to their users. They want better monetization mechanics. I think Web3 can definitely offer that, but we have a few missing layers that we need to focus on before we can really enable that, but I think we're just about there. So let's pause, let's ask, what does Web3 uniquely enable today that's really powerful? What are these disruptive primitives? And then where are we currently falling short? What do we need to put into place? I think there's kind of 3 really powerful areas that are unique to Web3. I think the first is kind of guarantees of ownership and data portability of your content. When you publish your content, it's yours, it's associated with your identity, and because it's published on open networks, IPFS, Arweave, Ceramic, et cetera, it's portable and different front ends can pick it up and use it. And that's entirely different than publishing your content into a YouTube, for example, or a Twitch, where only that platform then has control of it to modify it, to deplatform it, to ban it, and control where it can be seen. The second is kind of interesting. It's this guarantee of data integrity and data verifiability. When you write data to IPFS, you get a content ID. It's a hash that self-describes that content, and any viewer of that content, whether it's an image, a video, can verify that they're watching the exact video that is what you published, or at least they received the same bytes from the file that you published. That's really powerful. We've seen that unlock a lot of potential in the NFT space, where people are selling digital art or digital music, and the buyer knows that they have kind of that original copy, and their identity is associated with the canonical sense of ownership. Finally, we all know Web3 infra is permissionless. It's open access. You can build what you want without permission, without fear of being deplatformed, demonetized, or having the APIs cut off. When I entered this space, I had been building a startup that was initially working with and building on top of Google, Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest. And over time, they all closed API access to their platforms, created relationships direct with our users, and kind of cut us out of the equation. And that was kind of my tipping point moment where I was like, never again will I rely on these closed proprietary tech platforms. You need kind of permissionless open platforms to build on if you want to be in control of your own destiny. So these are the things that have gone really well. When I think what's missing is the guarantee of experience that users have come to expect when they interact with media platforms, interact with applications, social platforms. When you play a video on YouTube, it starts up immediately, regardless of where you're watching, what device you're on, what connection speed you have. And that's really important. Users have come to expect that. In Web3 and on top of Web3 infrastructure today, that actually is not currently the case. You typically see buffering, long download times, waiting for files to access. Sites take a long time to load. This is something we absolutely have to overcome. My example is kind of simple. It's just thinking about reads and writes, concepts that are common to databases and any data-centric application. So the writes are actually okay. If you want to write data to IPFS, in this case I have 2 videos being written to IPFS, you can publish them, you get back a content ID, you know that your data has made it there. You can even buy a Filecoin storage contract, and not to pick on our IPFS, the same would be applicable in an ecosystem like Arweave. You get your data in there and you get some guarantees. That's pretty strong. I think reads, however, are a different story. I work on video. I think video is 80% of the traffic on the internet. It's the richest form of media that we interact with on a daily basis. When you go to request a video from IPFS, if it's like a gigabyte long, hour long HD video, you have to download up to 50 megabytes before it can even begin playing back. Not to mention how long it takes to find and locate that video on these IPFS networks. And typically that leads to this buffering, this loading, and it's not delivering the experience that kind of Web2 users have come to expect. I think you will eventually get access to that data, and that's really powerful. You will be able to verify that it was correct. That is really powerful. But I think the richer the media is, the more real-time the requirements are, sort of the shorter that Web3 infrastructure is kind of coming up right now. I think this leads me to sort of the big elephant in the room that, particularly when it comes to video, but something that we don't really say out loud or acknowledge, we still have not seen a viable content delivery network that's peer-to-peer, that's Web3 powered, that can actually deliver a good video experience in real time, right? I think we've begun to scratch the surface at doing that for just plain data. We've seen that we can basically do it for images, but when it comes to any sort of decentralized CDN project on a Kademlia-based, routing network that, these things have been built for the last 20 plus years, we still haven't seen it able to do live video end to end in a reliable manner at scale. And so we have to acknowledge that, and we have to think about what sort of solutions can we put in place to actually guarantee that level of experience in the meantime while these infrastructures are still being built out. So how do we do that? How do we scale to millions of users this year on rich social killer applications? I think that we need to leverage the superpowers that Web3 offers that I've highlighted before. That sort of guarantee of data portability, that guarantee of ownership, that guarantee of verifiability, that open access. But we also have to deliver on the guarantee of experience piece, and this requires building special purpose solutions for special purpose use cases to ensure that users and application developers' needs are met. I think there's a path to guaranteeing this experience, and I'll show an example from kind of the video world. I think it starts with standard interfaces. So you need developers and application developers basically need to know what's a standard interface by which I can request a piece of content like a video. But then the infrastructure that fulfills that can't just be kind of proprietary and unique and closed. It needs to be Well, let me say that another way. You need portability of infrastructure so that if someone builds a proprietary, closed, fast infrastructure to handle kind of serving an asset request, that there's opportunity for other kind of competitive infrastructure providers to also adhere to that interface and to provide that caching layer, that experience layer to deliver in real time. That leads to kind of point 3, which is the open marketplace for competition amongst all of these kind of providers of experience, as I'll call them. And as long as the developers get those Web3 superpowers that we talked about, but they also have this open marketplace of providers to tap into to deliver a good experience, I think that leads to sort of the kind of the experiences that we need. So the example I have here comes from video. It's kind of extending the content ID concept that you see in IPFS and Arweave to kind of raw media identifiers. And what's the difference? What's happening here? So in my example, you have a broadcaster publishing an HD video into a decentralized infrastructure network like LivePeer. If that was IPFS, you would just get a content ID, and that big, heavy file would be the only file available. But to deliver a really good experience, that's not how video works. To deliver video around the world globally, you need to convert that video into many, many different files, many different formats of different bit rates so that it can be served to people with different connection speeds on different types of devices in different browsers over different protocols. You need to wrap it up in different delivery protocols such that there might be 20 or 30 different types of assets being delivered when people request that video. And that won't work with one content ID. Users won't be able to verify the content. But if you have kind of a standard interface for this raw media identifier, and you can just request that video based on the raw content itself, and that ID is tied to data and evidence of all of these video encodings. It has the signatures from the broadcaster and the infrastructure networks that did the work to do those encodings, and it allows the viewer to basically verify, regardless of which file they got, that it represents the actual raw media itself, then that's really powerful. That brings you all the Web3 primitives, but what it lets kind of a gateway, experience-based service provider to do is to do things like to cache this content, to build out a global CDN or leverage an existing global CDN to deliver this content. It can serve these performant video renditions instead of needing to deliver the 2 gigabyte file initially. And if it adheres to sort of the standard RMID interface, then anyone else can also plug in their own node or their own gateway service or their own competitive CDN to deliver this. And so I think that leads to kind of a powerful solution. I kind of just talked through this, the benefits of the marketplace, the interfaces, and the infrastructure portability. I think it leads to a world where you get these sort of guarantees of data portability, as I said, but you also get the guarantee of experience. And I think that's how we have to all be thinking as builders of infrastructure. I think what it leads to is kind of a really powerful, scalable Web3 infrastructure holistically, where developers get to rely on kind of these infinitely scalable services. They get all of the benefits and the superpowers of Web3. They don't have to rely on a single point of failure. They can scale their apps to millions of users. They get the maximal cost effectiveness through an open marketplace. They get the infinite or kind of the maximal reliability through all of the redundancies and competitions in these marketplaces. And most importantly, their end users, the users and creators, can trust that they're kind of getting the censorship resistance of the content, verifying that they own it, verifying they're viewing the correct content, and still receive a flawless playback experience. So it's a big vision, but I don't think we're far away. It's the sort of thing that we're working on every day at LivePeer in partnership with many of the other projects here and the Web3 infrastructure projects. If you're interested in learning more, you can find us at livepeer.org or at LivePeer on Twitter. And I'll be hanging around after the talk if anyone wants to talk about this stuff. Thank you.